As at the 31st March 22, all municipalities contributed to the underspending of conditional grants, except Kokama LM, which reported 100% expenditure on all conditional grants. On the two, the following are the recommendations. A, the joint committee meeting between Portfolio Committee for Finance and Local Government should occur, where the committees can interact with municipalities. B, provincial treasury must continue to give support to municipalities and ensure that they adhere to regulations. And the general finding in this area of this annual report is that we...
You have 4 minutes remaining, Honourable Member.
In all of them, speak. Okay. Then just speak.
Because you're reading findings as well as recommendations.
Yes. That on general finding A, on the repetitive finding of underspending for the past 13 years, we are saying the departments must ensure that they address the issue of underexpenditure and must identify the causes, and consequence management must take place where applicable. And then quickly on the half-year report, I just want to highlight, I'll jump the rest. On program 2, let me zoom on that one. Despite intervention made by PT, the Department of Health continues not to meet 30-day payment. And I think we also have highlighted it at one stage. And the second finding is that the two departments, Office of the Premier and Transport, have under-collected on their revenue targets. I wanted to come to that one. Reason being that the committee at one stage said revenue management should form part of the KPIs of the HODs and senior management. And I think this report has not captured that. And I think if that has not happened, we are likely to lose more in the attempts that we have set to have been kickstarted at the provincial level. Of course, I'm at your mercy, Speaker. On the last one, financial governance, I'm just keeping almost
You have 2 minutes remaining, Honourable Member.
Yes. We have a couple of findings, yes, in relation to municipal governance. That is the last program, which then makes me to quickly go to the general findings. Finding A, that the department is continuously underspending. This is the 6 months report. As it has spent 188.554 million of the projected 198, we are seeing under expenditure of 9 million. And the general recommendation says the department must ensure that it's spending its budget accordingly and apply remedial plans to this. We are again saying consequence management must be applicable. I'm sorry then for taking you up and down and making it very impossible to follow logic in this report. You would bear with me, honorable members. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you to the MEC and Treasury as well.
Thank you so much, Honorable Luana. Honorable Wana, are you not supposed to sit with the committee members? Yes. Any questions by the committee? Honorable Pillay and Honorable Matkubela are the only two hands in that order.
Honorable Speaker, on Program 2, Sustainable Resource Management, where findings say they are talking about the Department of Health continuously fails to pay. And also there is a recommendation that the provincial treasury must ensure that the Department of Health. My question is, to our understanding, there are many departments are failing to do that 30 days. I just want a clarity, why specifically only Department of Health? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Matkubela.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mine is on Program 5, Municipal Financial Governance. Finding A is in relation to the municipalities that continue to adopt unfunded budgets even after interventions. Your recommendation is good, but I would like to know, don't you have timelines for that recommendation? It reads as follows. The joint committee meeting between the portfolio committees for finance and local government should occur, whereby the committees can interact with the municipalities. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Honorable Member. To the committee.
Yes, Honorable Speaker, I think it's true that health is cited, but I'm sure all of us, Honorable Pillay, you would agree that health is one of those apex department in the province. So health and education would always be a reference when we raise these matters. But I must also hasten to say that other departments that are much more lower in terms of the rank are on it in terms of meeting that requirement. On the second one, Honorable Matkubela, of the municipalities and unfunded budget, we may not have pronounced in terms of the timelines, so to speak, but at the heart of it, it refers to the department to say, help us to get those in terms of the timeline, so to speak. I assume that within the standard agreed timelines of the House, that gets into that scope. Thank you very much. Thanks, Honorable.
Thank you so much to the committee. Any questions to the MEC? There seems to be none. We'll then call upon Honorable Kaule. Careful, careful. The 12 minutes starts now.
Louder. Madam Speaker, honourable members and fellow South Africans, I will present the report on behalf of Honourable Kasim, who has taken ill. The MEC for Finance, the Honourable Mlungisi Mvoko, in tabling the annual report of his department, outlined his priorities for the year under review. He described them as cost containment measures forming the basis of his fiscal consolidation strategy to stabilise provincial finances. Focus was on the following four things: management of the wage bill, zero-based budgeting, reducing government contingent liability costs, and provincial own revenue. It would therefore be reasonable of this House to measure the MEC and his department against these self-declared priority focus areas. Let us start with the management of the wage bill. 56.2 billion of the total 86.1 billion final appropriation was spent on the cost of employment. This equates to 65.3% of the total budget. The appeal going into the period under review was to stabilise the cost of employment at around 60% of provincial expenditure. This would have freed up around 5 billion rand for goods and services and infrastructure-related expenditure. For example, school budgets could have been bolstered, houses rectified, adequate medicinal supplies provided, or provincial roads fixed. It is thus clear that the wage bill has not been managed and the MEC has failed in this regard. In the DA-run Western Cape, the well-managed wage bill, which is the lowest in South Africa, has freed up billions for service delivery and infrastructure development, which has attracted investment, and in the last year alone, 203,000 new jobs were created in the province as a result. That is how you break the cycle of poverty. Zero-based budgeting has yet to be fully implemented in all departments and has to date produced underwhelming savings, mostly because of the increased phenomenon of unbudgeted expenditure, manifesting as spiralling irregular expenditure. Contingent liability increased by 3.8 billion, or 13.5%, from 27.9 billion to a mammoth 31.7 billion at the end of March this year. Efforts to reduce the medico-legal claims, which account for almost all the contingent liability, have failed. The public defence strategy that Treasury, OTP and the Department of Health hoped would resolve the issue of lump sum payments was rejected by the courts in all cases that had already been concluded. So contingent liability remains out of control. With respect to provincial own revenue, the department collected 99 million rand less than targeted for the year under review. We expect this trend to continue with projected under-collections for the current financial year at 66.17 million, and this figure is expected to increase. This is hardly surprising. Our provincial government failed to make any bold decisions with respect to its property portfolio. Disposal of non-revenue generating assets would have both saved us the cost of their upkeep and generated additional revenue. Instead, we continue to undercollect on rentals, with properties depreciating due to a lack of maintenance. Honourable Speaker, the failure of the MEC to make progress on his self-declared priorities can perhaps be found in part in the performance of his department for the period under review. The department cumulatively achieved only 56 of the 89 planned APP targets, with Programme 1 administration achieving only 20% of its targets and Programme 5 municipal finance governance achieving only half of its targets. Repetitive findings made against the department include underspending for the past 13 financial years, under-expenditure on provincial and municipal conditional grants, unsatisfactory implementation of the accountability model and hence consequence management. Price index in respect of high-value, low-value items has been outstanding since 2011. In fact, National Treasury has abandoned this altogether. And poor financial management in municipalities. Underspending of provincial conditional grants for the year under review was a whopping 572.5 million. Whilst rollovers have since been approved, we have picked up projected under-expenditure in the current year that is already approaching 400 million. We have already had conditional grant funding forgone due to contraventions of the conditions of the grants. 5.25 of the social sector EPWP incentive grant has been forgone in social development and community safety. A further 3.25 million of the EPW incentive grant for provinces has not been received in health, DISRAC and Dr. Dar due to a failure to spend at least 25% of the first quarter tranche, in addition to them contravening the grant conditions. Given the levels of unemployment and poverty in our province, this is an absolute disgrace. Where is the consequence management, MEC? Apart from the continued poor management of conditional grant expenditure, the overall net over expenditure on the provincial budget projected for the current year is 847 million, with runaway spending occurring in the departments of health, education, transport, and public works. Projected over expenditure for health alone makes up 628 million. This department is crippled by high accruals and payables, and it will once again be unable to pay its suppliers, and this failure will be measured in human lives. Honourable Speaker, my colleague Vicky Knutze has described the horrific state of municipal finances across our province. As of the end of the municipal financial year this year, they recorded capital expenditure of only 78%, with conditional grants going unspent. It is worthwhile reflecting on the municipal conditional grant expenditure at the year end so as to appreciate the services that our residents have been deprived of. Water Services Infrastructure Grant, 62%. Municipal Disaster Relief Grant, 36%. Neighbourhood Development Partnership Grant, 36%. Energy Efficiency and Demand Side Management Grant, 61%. Rural Roads Asset Management Systems Grant, 55%. Grant and Project Preparation Support Grant, 29%. In the current financial year, only 774 million, or 11% of the 7.37 billion rand municipal infrastructure grants has been spent, 11%. Municipalities have had the ability to deliver services further compromised by low levels of revenue collection and almost 6 billion less than budgeted for. Of the 24.8 billion owed to municipalities, 20.7 billion, or 83%, is more than 90 days old. Municipalities have thus struggled to perform their basic functions and meet their financial obligations to trade creditors, for pensions, for retirement, to Eskom, and to the dreadful Amatola Water Board. Honourable Speaker, my former colleague Retief Oudendal urged MEC Mvoko a year ago to make difficult decisions needed to turn around the province's finances. These included, 1, stopping the wastage on non-core service delivery spending. We need to put a stop to wasteful expenditure and tighten our belts. Number 2, addressing the runaway cost of employment by stabilising same at around 60% of the total budget. Colleagues, if we manage to achieve this, we will free up some 5 billion rand annually that can be utilised towards service delivery in the province. This is the game changer. 3, rationalising our provincially owned entities. This is a promise the Honourable Premier made to this House some 3 years ago. To date, we have seen little to no progress on the matter. Some of our provincial entities
Honourable Member,
have
you have 2
become
minutes remaining.
bloated, and thank you, Madam Speaker, have become bloated and grossly mismanaged. We need to put a stop to this gravy train once and for all. 4, finding a solution to the ballooning provincial medico-legal claims. The Department of Health is factually bankrupt. It is unable to meet its yearly commitments. This department will collapse the entire province if we do not put stringent measures in place to address the mess. And 5, increasing our own provincial revenue. Our province is far too reliant on grant funding. Since the grant funding we receive from national is likely to become progressively less for the foreseeable future due to fiscal constraints, we urgently require additional revenue streams to ensure that we can make ends meet. Honourable MEC, tough decisions, through you, Madam Speaker, tough decisions have to be made to stabilise our financial outlook, because the alternative is a failed state. Service delivery has already been compromised, and if this dangerous trend continues, our citizens will seek them elsewhere, further eroding our provincial equitable share. The Democratic Alliance will continue to fight for clean governance and accountability for all spending in this province, because our people deserve no less. The Democratic Alliance accepts the report. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you so much, Honorable Cowley. Honorable Zinti from the UDM, your 4 minutes starts now.
Honorable Speaker, substantial successive fiscal packages under considerable time and operational pressure. Speed is key to the success and effectiveness of government action on the economic and social front. Clarity on spending decisions and transparency on actual implementation is a major concern. The initial stages of the crisis in managing of finances, agility and speed is of paramount importance, with legislative oversight as well as internal controls weakening. However, these exceptional circumstances should not become the norm, and regular financial management and processes should be resumed as quickly as possible. It may also be the case that some elements of the budget processes need to be revised or strengthened, e.g. fiscal risk management. Good budgetary governance, that is the institutions, processes and structures for allocating resources to government policies, delivering them and reporting on the financial outcomes, is critical at all times to support the timely and efficient delivery of government policies, while at the same time ensuring appropriate transparency, accountability of government action. The underfunding of legislature is crippling the work of oversight, and it is the failure to the interest of the people. This will shake up the credibility of Parliament. This will paint a negative picture of the legislature and illustrate what happens when there is poor oversight due to lack of funds. The heads of departments need to look at the issue of underspending with regards to infrastructure. The infrastructure fund can be used to enhance collaboration and attract private sector investment. Persistent electricity interruptions, low confidence, and low capital spending from public corporations are contributing to falling infrastructure and unemployment in the province. Conditional grants are used to support compliance with national norms and standards, to compensate provinces for providing services that may extend beyond provincial boundaries, and to ensure that national priorities are adequately provided for in provincial and local government budgets. Honorable Speaker, in conclusion, the implementation of policy have got 4 challenges in the province. That is lack of resources, inadequate staffing of personnel, slow response time of suppliers, and inadequate skills or training that we need to note, or the government that is in control need to note in the future coming years. The UTM support the report. Thank you, Honorable
Thank
Speaker.
you so much, Honorable Zinti. We call upon the ANC, Honorable Ndabeni. Your 18 minutes starts now.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Good afternoon to you, if it's afternoon. Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Premier in absentia, Honorable members of the Executive Council, Honorable members of the Legislature, head of departments, our officials in the Legislature, our guests in the gallery, comrades and friends. Let me take this opportunity, Honorable Speaker, to thank the organization that I come from, my political home, the African National Congress, for allowing me to be part of this debate on the evaluation and the assessment of the financial expenditure for the previous financial year. Honorable Speaker, in entering this debate, we were inspired by the words of one of the renowned revolutionaries who lived in the 19th and 20th century, Vladimir Lenin, who led the socialist revolution of the USSR, today commonly known as Russia. In contemplating with the concept of financial capital and imperialism in the world, as it relates to the developing and the developed countries, he has this to say, and I quote, "Imperialism is the highest state of capitalism, which is meant to generate more profit for the colonizers and the exploitation of the natural resources for the colonized nations," close quote. The country of our birth, South Africa, has gone through all the stages that Comrade Lenin has defined in the theorization of the socialist revolution of the USSR. South Africa has gone through the colonial stages of the development, where the colonizers conquered South Africa and used our natural resources to exploit and to make profits for themselves and to generate more capital. South Africa has gone through stages of imperialist up to the apartheid stage of development. In this context, Honorable Speaker, we have seen in the context of South African development trajectory that during both colonialism and apartheid, we have seen large, big, huge companies which are led by the imperialist forces growing, expanding in South African society. Companies like Anglo-American, Sanlam, Old Mutual, Standard Bank, and many other companies that have accumulated so much capital using our natural resources to a point where they can dictate to the state about the political direction that the country must take. These companies are driven by nothing else but profit maximization and exploitation of the poor masses of our people. The African National Congress came into power in 1994 and brought a new paradigm shift in terms of the developmental trajectory of South Africa post-apartheid. The African National Congress brought a concept of a developmental state, a state that is a state-led macroeconomic development trajectory, which brought a fundamental paradigm shift in terms of the human development of South Africa. A state that is using its financial ability and fiscal resources to intervene in the development of the people of the land. A state which has invested over 800 billion of its fiscus on social infrastructure development. A state which has built over 10 million housing units for everyone and everybody in South Africa since 1994. A state that has democratized access to electricity. To this end, over 85% of the population of South Africa has got access to electricity, minus load shedding. A state which has brought about free education, both at the basic level and at the tertiary level of education, maximizing the access to tertiary education by black people in particular, or rather in general, and Africans in particular. Honorable Speaker, a state that since 1994, over 94% of our population has access to clean potable water by investing money and resources in the development of our people. A state which has got over 70% of South African citizens have access to decent sanitation. To this end, a state that has invested over trillions on the massive infrastructure development of our people. A state that has more than people who earn below less than 300,000 per annum have got access to our free health services. That is a paradigm shift that the African National Congress brought since 1994. We can go on and on and on and on. Just to zoom into the topical issue, Honorable Speaker, recently the Statistics South Africa, which is one of our institutions researching on the development of the country and the population index, has released its results showing that recently in the last quarter of the current year, We have gained more than 204,000 new entrants in the job market, despite and minus COVID. That represents an official decrease of unemployment by 1%. In this context, Honorable Speaker, we must appreciate that the economy of South Africa generally has increased by 1.6% in the last quarter of this current financial year. In the same vein, Honorable Speaker, we must appreciate that our province is gearing towards the right direction in terms of in fighting unemployment, growing economy, as per the report of the Statistics General released in the current months. Officially, as we speak, Eastern Cape as a province has declined in terms of unemployment to 42%. That is a great achievement in terms of dealing with the unemployment challenge that is confronting our people. To that point, Honorable Speaker, both metros, which is our economic centers in the province, both metros, Buffalo City Metro and Nelson Mandela Metro, in terms of the unemployment rates, according to the Stats SA, they've declined the unemployment in Buffalo City by 6.4%, in Nelson Mandela Metro down by 1.7%. We're dealing with these critical challenges using our state fiscus to deal with unemployment, which is a core issue in terms of the mandate of the current administration. Honorable Speaker, we support the effort by the provincial treasurer in terms of the department in making sure that they support the local economic development and the procurement opportunities for our local SMMEs. That preferential procurement is designed to make sure that it develops our people and our service providers in the province. We also want to urge that all departments must be encouraged to make sure that they comply with the 30-day pay period for the SMMEs in general that are providing services to the state. We commend the stride by the treasurer in supporting our local suppliers during this year under the review. The provincial treasurer procured goods and services to our local suppliers to a tune of 12.8 million of the amount of 2.6 billion which was allocated. That is a great achievement in terms of making sure that our local SMMEs benefit to the development of the province. Honorable Speaker, as the African National Congress, we note with a great appreciation the implementation of the Financial Management Accountability Framework, which must ensure to enforce that all provincial departments, as well as the municipalities, they work to make sure that they've got correct and accountability mechanism in dealing with the finances of the province. The provincial legislature, Provincial Department of Rural Development, Agrarian Reforms, Economic Development, Environmental Affairs, and Tourism, as well as the entity under the Department of Transport, which is the Fleet Management Services, have all attained clean audits in the last financial year. That is a commended step in terms of cleaning our government, good governance, and make sure that there's accountability and financial management. Honorable Speaker, we commend that under the previous financial year, the irregular expenditure has decreased from 3.3 billion in the previous financial year, at least to under 1.5 billion in the current financial year. That still represents a huge, but in terms of the reduction, it's over 50% reduction in terms of our irregular expenditure. Honorable Speaker, that talks to a strong leadership at the level, the high echelons of our departments, the high levels of the caliber of the management we have in our departments, the improvement of our controls, and to make sure that the weaknesses in our systems are quickly identified, the timeless implementation and monitoring of the audit action plans as per the department, the commitment to make sure that there's audit improvement plans by the department, and make sure that the critical posts in departments are filled by all departments. Honorable Speaker, we must also indicate that two of our entities in the province, Kucha and East London Industrial Development Zones, have maintained their clean audit, exceeding far their targets in terms of their investor performance, and to make sure that combined, they brought in the province new over 19 new investment in the province, worth over 1.5 billion, creating more than 800 job opportunities for the province of the Eastern Cape. Those are the strides and efforts that the ANC government is doing in making sure that we change this paradigm shift and we change the apartheid spatial development plan as articulated by Lenin in the communist philosophy. Honorable Speaker, in conclusion, the African National Congress, we applaud the Treasury Department as well for the receiving the clean audit. And therefore, the biggest challenge that we want to pose to the provincial treasurer as a nerve center of our financial management moving forward is to make sure that we industrialize the province, is to make sure that all the goods are procured and are manufactured in the province. If we are to use stationery as the province, we must make sure that that stationery through the Department of Education is manufactured in the province. If the Department of Health is using linen in our hospitals, we must make sure that that linen is manufactured in the province of the Eastern Cape. And therefore, we must impress that provincial treasurer must move a step further than just clean audit and make sure that now we industrialize our province by making sure that we use the state money, resources, to industrialize the province, to massify industrialization, and to make sure that we create job opportunities for the province. And that treasurer must engineer that particular development trajectory. As the ANC in the province, in this legislature, Honorable Speaker, we support the report as presented. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Ntabeni. I call upon the MEC, Honorable Mvoko. Your 10 minutes starts now. I'm sure you'll take 5 minutes.
Yes, sure. I won't disappoint you. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and greetings to you, greetings to the members of executive, greetings to the honorable members of the House, all government officials here. I'm all by myself, so let's say stock still alien. So I think my department has abandoned me. I called on the. No. I've got nothing. Nobody from the department. That's from my office. They're supposed to be here in any way. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, Honorable Chairperson. Let me start by saying I feel honored once again to be here to give some remarks on the portfolio report on our annual report for 21-22 financial year and half-year report 22-23. As Provincial Treasury, I know, as identified by Honorable Cowley, that some of the areas of performance we identified by ourselves, irrespective of how they depend on other departments. If we identified them by ourselves, we must fall on our own sword. But I do believe that she also understands that some of these are not very easy to do, especially when you depend on another department. COE management has been one area that has been very difficult in this province. And I think in the previous financial year, I spoke to this matter. It was the Honorable Retief Wodendal, the now mayor of the Nelson Mandela Bay, who might be leaving soon, who raised this matter about the ballooning, about the ballooning COE in the province. The truth of the matter is that, in fact, I asked him to give me advice. What do you do Do you sit down and say, Department let me not make an example of health and education, because we've got serious challenges of COE when it comes to those two. We go to the Department of DISRAC and say to DISRAC, you have too many people, we've got to reduce them. What are the implications? The implications are that we must then retrench. And I don't think at this present situation, we can afford as government to do retrenchment. It implies that the only way in which you can manage the COE is for departments to look at what is it that we actually need. If you remember, 2 years ago, I said departments must look at their organograms and say, what is it that we need in terms of performing our core business? And that we do not need. See how you convert that to perform your core business. And that's the only way you trim. But we cannot afford to go through retrenchment or achieve that. In fact, I've been listening to many departments reporting here in terms of committees talking about how departments should be filling in the vacancies in their departments. And on the other hand, we are talking about the reduction of the COE. Yes, we suffer a lot when it comes to the national division of revenue, because at national level, once, as they do consolidation before they do allocation, if you remember in our previous budget, that's where we lost as a province. So it's a catch-22 situation, a very difficult one. It's not very easy. Given also our performance, if you talk about the Department of Health, how do you talk about reducing what they have on COE when we have a medico-legal that is on the rise? We talk about the contingent liability on the medical legal currently that we are having. It's huge. So this is a catch-22 situation. Come to education, Honorable Gade will tell you that now we've just had a huge discussion that we could not get closer to each other about the post-provisioning norm that he wants to declare. He has a shortage, but we couldn't because we don't have funds. We don't know ultimately what will happen. We couldn't give him the 3 billion he wanted. I don't even know if we gave him anything, by the way. So he just has to do with what we have. Because we really do not have money. When we were presenting our adjustment budget here, we showed you how we dipped into our reserves. In actual fact, some of the allocations come from allocations in the outer years of the MTEF. What are the implications of that? So that when that time comes, those funds will not be there. So the bottom line is that we don't have money. And we are uncompromising on that because we don't want to find ourselves in a situation where we commit blunders because we have to meet some of these things. We don't have. That's what we said to Honorable Gade. We know you need 3 billion rand. You know you have to declare your post-provisioning norm at 53,000 or something. Sorry, we don't have money. We can have that discussion and think at a later stage, but the bottom line is we don't have money. He had to accept it, and everyone else will have to accept that. So I'm responding to the COE, which is a serious challenge, unless departments, and you must also remember we are a coordinating department that would advise departments. And if we are finding difficulty in dealing with those departments, we have to write to the Premier, and that's the really decision of the Premier. The same goes to the revenue fund, the collection, sorry, not the revenue fund, the under collection. The departments that are under collecting here, we've written to them, we've reported this legislature, this is their target. They must try and do something. They are under collecting, but we're hoping that as time goes by, those departments will recover. For as long as we have those small challenges, or departments are not applying, are not really serious in collection, we are going to. I used to make an example here of the Premier who went to, what's this hospital? Frere Hospital, and asked. Somebody gets knocked down gets an accident, the ambulance picked that person up. To Frere, the person is still unconscious. gets to be treated in FRE on the third day, when the person wakes up, says, I want to be transferred to St. Dominic's, and the person is taken to St. Dominic's. And the medical aid pays for St. Dominic's. So then the premier arrives at FRE Hospital, asks the person, but why are you not recovering that, the period before the person was transferred to St. Dominic's? And the response was, we don't know how to recover that. You see, this is where we're losing. These are the losses. Because we should have recovered from the ambulance to the time that the person went to St. Dominic. So these are challenges that are faced by departments. I don't want to make many examples, but the point I'm raising is that it is not dependent on Treasury to deal with that. It is dependent on the departments. All we can do
You have
is
1
to
minute
persuade
remaining, Honorable
departments.
MEC. You are not doing well with time today.
I know, Honorable, but I thought, let me just talk to a few things. And in all what we are doing, we are met with challenges that dim the light on some of our great achievements. In this regard, we take pride at the fact that the province has achieved 11 unqualified audit opinions, 7 of these being clean audit opinions. Over and above these, public entities also attained unqualified audit opinion. This achievement is proof
In this room, please understand that that's acceptable in terms of the norms. So this department has only 2 programs. It's administration as well as provincial secretariat for police. So for program 1, these are the findings from the portfolio committee. The department, that's A. The department has incurred an overall under expenditure amounting to 1.8 million, which is realized under the capital assets due to the delays in the delivery of ICT equipment. B, since the relocation of the department to the new offices, there's no landline and fax, and this has been happening for over a year. In the period under review, and that's finding C, the department has improved the prescribed 50-50 gender parity in the middle management services, which translates to 50-50. The department is slow on addressing the employment of people with living with disabilities. Only 3 people with disabilities out of the 121 filled vacancies and 11 posts for interns are employed. Maybe if I was the chairperson of this committee, I would have requested members to go take their seats. There were delays with the finalization.
Thank you. I thought they were not in the house.
I can see a few of them.
They are now sneaking there. I see the whip is also on the way, slowly but surely.
Slowly, taking little steps like the little budget that this department has. There were delays with the
Stevenson has also remembered he's part of the committee.
There were delays with the finalization of the department reviewed organizational structure. The reviewed structure never reached the Department of Public Service and Administration for final approval. The department expenditure for performance rewards in the period under review amounted to 228,000. With this expenditure, only 9 employees qualified for the payment of performance rewards in terms of PMDS, out of a total of 130 employees in the department. Thank you so much, colleagues. In the period under review, the subsistence and traveling expenditure amounted to 5.4 million. Compared to the previous period, the subsistence and traveling expenditure increased by 1.5 million. And these are the recommendations. I would have wanted, Honorable Speaker, to juggle between recommendations, findings and recommendations for those who do not have copies of the report. I hope, because these are young people here in the gallery, they would be able to still remember what I said in the findings. So recommendation for finding A is that the department must ensure the expenditure is closely monitored and that internal controls are strengthened to prevent incurring under expenditure in the future, considering the fact that the departmental budget is not substantial and under expenditure of 1.8 million is significant. B, the department must speed up the process, the procurement process for landline and fax line at its offices, as this raises serious questions relating to the maintenance of contact with the members of the public and stakeholders. C, the improvement is much appreciated with respect to the 50-50 at middle management level. However, we, as the portfolio committee, are saying that with respect to senior management level, they need to improve. D, the department must urgently devise measures to ensure that people with disabilities are employed as per required regulations. E, the department must expedite the process of development and subsequent approval of its reviewed organizational structure. You would remember, honorable members, that even the name of the department has since changed, so they need to change even the organizational structure. The department must ensure that its processes for the payment of performance rewards are inclusive of all its employees to encourage high standards of work ethics. G, the department must ensure that increase on the subsistence and travel expenditure is closely monitored and controls are put in place so as to prevent this from happening in the future. Program 2, Provincial Secretariat for Police Service. I will not bore you with the purpose of the sub-program. However, let's just shoot to the findings. Finding A, in the period under review, the target on police stations monitored on service delivery was not reached. And this is the period where we had COVID-19. The department has a challenge of lack of funding for a fully established provincial civilian secretariat, as this has a negative impact towards the realization of crime-free and safe Eastern Cape. C, in the period under review, the Eastern Cape South African Police Services response to departmental oversight recommendations has improved. 51.4% of departmental oversight recommendations were successfully implemented. The payment of stipends of members of Community Police Forum is still a challenge. E, one of the issues that were identified by the department during the research was the bad road infrastructure that hampers or delays the response time by South African Police Services. F, the period under review was characterized by increased violence, rape and murder in most areas of the province. G, serious personnel shortages at the South African Police Services, sub-training academies and police station is identified by the department as one of the prevalent challenges facing the police service in the province. Now we go to recommendations. Recommendation A, the department must ensure that its targets are met as this hampers service delivery. B, the department must engage the provincial treasury with the view to highlight the importance of the establishment of the provincial secretariat for police and the funding thereof. And maske njengoba asnamali, wemisi basakwenza kanjani. Recommendation C, the Eastern Cape South African Police Services is commended on the rise on the implementation of the department's recommendations. D, the Eastern Cape South SAPS Provincial Commissioner must engage with the National Office of SAPS on fast-tracking the policy that will resolve the non-payment of stipend with respect to community police forums. E, the department must engage the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs to address this challenge. F and G, the department must liaise with the Eastern Cape South African Police Services, particularly the Provincial Commissioner, to facilitate a development of a plan that will ensure that SAPS institutions in the province are adequately resourced. Now we move on to the half-year report. That would be the period between 1 April and 30 September 2022. The allocation, the annual allocation for the department has gone down from 109 million to 107 million. And the programs are still two. With respect to the expenditure thus far, the department has spent 49 million. In terms of percentages, it translates to 47%. If we were on a straight line, we would have expected that the department spends 50% of its budget, but because these are projections, anything can still happen. Findings for program 1A, the department is projecting an over expenditure amounting to 3.1 million on its overall budget, and the projected over expenditure is mainly under goods and services and capital expenditure. B, the sub-program financial management recorded an over expenditure amounting to 280,000. C, in the period under review, the department has capacity challenges in its communication unit. D, the non-finalization of the department's organizational structure poses a challenge even in the current financial year, and therefore we recommend that the department must ensure that this over expenditure is averted, the one of 3 million, and does not accumulate to prevent an unauthorized expenditure. C, the department must ensure that the communication unit is adequately capacitated. D, the department must expedite the process of development and the subsequent approval of its reviewed organizational structure. And the findings for program 2 are as follows. A, in the period under review, the department has a challenge of escalating travel expenses by the employees. B, the Kenkel Boss Community Police Forum was not assessed in the period under review. C, in the period under review, there were no memoranda of understanding that were signed with any entity, municipality and or institution of higher learning as per the plans. D, in the period under review, the court watching brief program managed to enroll cases that were thrown out of court roll due to inefficiencies of the South African police services. E, the department has a challenge of non-implementation of oversight recommendations that are in the ambit of the National Office of SAPS. F, in the period under review, there's an increase in the number of gender-based violence cases and murder cases in the rural areas in the province. We therefore recommend that the department must devise a coherent plan of monitoring the escalating travel expenses by employees to ensure value for money. B, we recommend that the department must ensure that assessment of CPFs is a priority, as this will ensure effective functioning and sustainability of CPFs. C, the department must expedite the negotiations with the municipality and municipalities and institutions of higher learning so that memorandum of understanding can be signed as to provide a solid intervention in ensuring safety and security for the people of the province. D, the department is applauded for the court watching brief program. However, the department must monitor that SAPS members they must monitor SAPS members in their inefficiencies when executing their services. E, the department must put in place mechanisms
to ensure that its oversight recommendations are implemented by National Office of SABS for improved and effective policing in the province. The last recommendation is that the department must engage other relevant departments and other stakeholders to conduct awareness campaigns and workshops around the
You have
province.
2 minutes remaining, Honorable Member.
Furthermore, the department, thank you, Speaker, the department must liaise with the provincial commissioner on addressing the shortages of resources on police stations. General findings, we found that for the past 7 years, the department has received an unqualified audit opinion. We recommend that the political and administrative leadership of the department be commended by the House for clean audit opinion that has been received since 2014-2015 financial year. However, the department should ensure that good governance and internal controls always prevail to maintain good standards that have been set. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, on behalf of the Portfolio Committee, we would like to sincerely apologize for the fact that the report is not tabled in the ATC. We've had hiccups with respect to the time slots and the sitting of the committee. However, we appreciate that the House has afforded us an opportunity to make this presentation today. Our sincere appreciation goes to the department as led by the MEC for the work and the cooperation, particularly the Portfolio Committee support staff, the researcher, the legal advisor, and most importantly, the committee coordinator for staying up throughout last night to compile this report. I therefore table these two reports for consideration by the House. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you so much, Honorable Member. Any questions to the committee? I see Honorable Anil Kumar and Honorable Matkubela. Only those two in that order.
Thank you, Speaker. I think the financial overview, the second report. Program 2, the first one, you are referring to a escalating travel allowance, travel expenses by the employees. But your recommendation is saying that the department is going to have a monitoring plan. Escalating travel allowance itself is a crime. So it cannot be monitoring. It should be something else, unless you clarify. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Matkubela.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mine is in relation to annual report, page 4, finding E. In terms of the research report received from the department, they are saying the delays that are being caused to respond to the community's challenges by SAPS is due to bad road infrastructure. If you read the recommendation, I don't have a problem with it, but my question is, why nishiya ngaphandle the proclaimed provincial roads? Because some of the roads in the rural areas don't belong to the municipalities. They are the function of the provincial Department of Transport. And those SAPS buggies can't access those communities and assist them. And there's a high rate of crime, specifically the GBV and femicide in the rural areas. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you so much, Honorable Member. To the committee.
Fresh. Thank you very much, honorable members, for the questions. The first question, the response to it is that when we conducted oversight over the annual report, there was the period, that was the period during COVID-19. And therefore, not everyone was back at work. The spirit of capturing the finding is that there's an increase by 1.5 million in terms of traveling. So now that everyone is back, and community safety conducts oversight over subs, so they need to travel to police stations. Now, our recommendation is that they must monitor that expenditure so that it brings about value for money and that it does not translate into unauthorized expenditure. The second one, the spirit of the discussions in the committee was that irrespective of the category of the road, the fact that SAPS delays its response time due to bad roads, that must be taken into consideration. We were even saying in the committee, we are fortunate in that the MEC that is responsible for community safety is also responsible for transport in the province. And we then said, kulindwe ntoni, MEC lo wakwa safety makaxelele wakwa transport uba the roads are very bad and they must be fixed so that we are able to improve the response time.
Thank you so much.
If I have not covered everything,
Oh,
Honorable
so-
Speaker, my apologies. The members that would be debating would then cover. Thanks.
Yes, thank you so much. Any clarities for the MEC? Oh, Honorable Matkubela, only one.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Is program 1, page 2. I'm not 100% clear in relation to recommendation B. Can the MEC give us a full update report regarding that matter, Chair? Because it's very important for the communities to communicate with the department. If there are no landlines, no facts, nothing, and in terms of the report, they are saying that is still in a procurement stage that needs to be speeded up. But we would like to know that presently, how are the communities communicating with the department? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Member. Honorable MEC, Ngata?
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Member, and greetings. Yeah, it's one of those questions that cannot wait for 30 days because it's an important question. And if I can just say that we have begun since in all districts, landlines have been installed in terms of infrastructure. It's only our new building here at the head office and in Nelson Mandela Bay, since we had to engage the landlord about those issues. And there are internal arrangements that have been made for officials who are entitled to cell phone and data to ensure that they are able to function. But landlines and fax lines are fully functional in all district offices except, in Nelson Mandela. And we are also revamping our website, and of which soon we'll load those numbers there so that public can have access. Because these are interim measures. We're looking at having a fully functional telephone management system. So we have got interim arrangements, Honorable Member, for the public to get us whilst we're still going to be installing a fully telephone management system in place. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable MEC. We now call upon the DA, Honorable Stevenson. Your 12 minutes starts now.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, Honorable MECs, members of the House. You know, we have this 48-hour rule that a report must be circulated 48 hours in advance, and we agreed to waive the rule, and I was party to it. But this must be an all-time record a 4-hour rule. And a lot of people on the committee yesterday, and I wasn't part of it because I was in the House, put a lot of effort into finalizing the report. So I commend them for that. If you read through the report, you will notice that the department has had a clean audit 7 years in a row. I'm sure it must be longer by now because as long as I can remember, they've been having a clean audit. So one must commend the department for that. I think it must be a record for government departments. Then the second thing I noticed when we were in our meetings with the department is that there's been a shift in their approach to oversighting SAPs, and that is what I call a more interventionist approach. So I would also like to commend them for that and acknowledge that. Then they started a pilot project some time ago called the Court Watching Brief, and this is now a meeting with success, where a number of cases have been re-enrolled as a result of that. So that is also good news, and I don't want to disappoint the Honourable Pillay, but this project was originally started in the Western Cape, and I'm glad that it's been taken up in other parts of the country. Then, Honourable Speaker, this report also speaks to the increasing violence, rape, and murder in most areas of the province. And I think this is something of great concern to all of us, the tsunami of violent crime that continues to attack us, where we see people brutally murdered, buildings hijacked, long-distance buses attacked, and taxi warfare. And just today, there was a tragic story in the newspaper of a 5-year-old girl in Alexandria who had her head almost cut off with a spade. And this is really, really sick. The second quarter crime statistics that were released recently once again reinforce the province's reputation with a high murder rate. 1,003 people were murdered across the province, which was a 31.3% increase compared to the same period last year. And our per capita murder rate is sadly the highest in South Africa at 19.7 per 100,000. This province has 5 stations in the top 30 in the whole country for murder, namely Mthatha, Lusikisiki, KwaNobuhle, Bethelsdorp, and New Brighton, 3 of which are in Nelson Mandela Bay. We've also seen 11% spike in the number of sexual offences and a 30% spike in attempted murders. Assault with intent to cause grievously bodily harm has also increased. And then stock theft. 8 of the top 30 stations for stock theft are found in the Eastern Cape. And there's a definite link between stock theft and violent crime, as was recently witnessed in BT. Honourable Speaker, there's also a real concern that given the time it takes for SAPs to respond, that people will take the law into their own hands. And we have already seen a spike in vigilante murders, both nationally and provincially. And in this province, over the last 3 months, 74 people were murdered through mob justice in this province in the last 3 months. So this rise of vigilantism and mob justice is of great concern. And this is why it's important that SAPS is able to respond quickly when people call them, that they are the adequate number of vehicles available, so people don't take the law into their own hands. And this is why we need to ensure that these 10111 centers operate effectively. And I recently asked a question, and the MEC said at the time that there are 24 incoming lines in Nelson Mandela Bay, with sometimes just 2 or 3 members to take the calls due to the high volume of absenteeism. And I went there on Monday to see for myself. And there was only one person, Honorable Benjamin, only one person available to answer the phones. And one of the complaints was that there were no vehicles online for Algoa Park. And the Honorable Benjamin will know that we went there one evening at 12 o'clock at night. Our portfolio committee went for a midnight visit because of the complaints we've had about Algoa Park. So, Honorable MEC, I think that is a station that really needs to be put under the microscope. And then also there were similar problems in East London, where there are a large number of calls that are being dropped due to problems with load shedding. Now, with regard to the problem of load shedding in Nelson Mandela Bay, I did communicate with the Executive Mayor, Retief Oudendal, because one of the reasons that was given for people not answering the phones in Nelson Mandela Bay was load shedding, and I asked if they couldn't exempt 10111 from load shedding. I've never had a formal reply yet, but when I went there, they told me they no longer have load shedding at 10111. Then, Honourable Speaker, there's also a relationship between what I call crime and the misuse of capital. And yesterday, the Honourable Makgaga gave us a lecture or a talk on Marxism or communist ideology, blaming monopoly capitalism for all the problems we are facing in this province. And yes, he was lecturing me. And I listened very carefully. But when I filtered this through my liberal traditions, I really felt that this was a distortion of the real cause of the problems in the province and in the country. And rather, I believe that the culprit for the problems we are facing is what I call comrade capitalism. Comrade capitalism resulted in what was called state capture. This is when a minority of deployed cadres can capture and control the resources of the state to the detriment of the people and resulting in the exploitation of the working class. Over 250 billion is believed to have been stolen as a result of state capture, which has aptly been termed the 9 wasted years. And I didn't coin that term, nor did the DA. Monopoly capitalism wasn't to blame for the theft of 250 billion. It was comrade capitalism and its stepchild, which is what I call cadre deployment. And one just has to look at the collapsing municipalities in the Eastern Cape to see the result of cadre deployment. But look at Eskom. In the year 2000, Eskom was the best power utility in the whole world. It was recognized as the best power utility in the whole world. And look what has happened now.
Member, you have 3 minutes remaining.
Sorry? Thank you. Now, I was privileged in the early 90s to visit the Soviet Union with the late Raymond Mshlaba. We were busy with a project negotiating the one city in Port Elizabeth, where the DP and the ANC had formed an arrangement to outflank what was then the National Party. And I saw firsthand what happened in the Soviet Union, how communism had collapsed because it actually ran out of capital. And that is why so many people ran away from the Soviet Union. They wanted to escape to the West, where they could have economic opportunities. So there were simply not the resources to sustain the state. And I never forget sitting around a table with Oom Ray and one of the engineers in East Germany, in Rostock, said, "You see that tanker over there? It once never left the harbor for 6 months because it needed a bolt this size for its steering. But sadly, the production was up for that year in the Soviet Union, so we had to wait 6 months. So that is also the danger of a command economy and how it can distort the market forces necessary to generate wealth. Honourable Speaker, in conclusion, I really believe that the Provincial Commissioner should appear before the Portfolio Committee of Safety, Community Safety, and outline the plan that SAPS has in this province to bring down the high rate of violent crime. It has really reached alarming levels, and we need to see what the plan is. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Stevenson. We call upon the UDM, Honorable Zinti. Is she not in the house? Honorable Camilo Benjamin. Your 18 minutes starts now.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Acting Premier, the Executive, Honorable Members, guests in the House, the community at large. I greet you all. Honorable Speaker, December is a festive month, a period of family gatherings. Some families will be traveling from various places to celebrate December holidays with their loved ones. This also is the period where our province and city generates much needed revenue through tourism and hospitality. Honorable Speaker, during this time, safety and security becomes indispensable for a successful festive season. We shall mobilize our resources towards a common goal of ensuring safety of citizens and tourists who will be visiting us. We advise our fellow citizens not to be extravagant during this period, considering that schools will open soon and that we are in recession. Honorable Speaker, I feel honored and appreciate the opportunity granted to me by the African National Congress, the oldest liberation movement, and to fellow South African citizens to represent them in this august house. Serving people is an act of humility and good faith which should be respected at all times. We commend the department for achieving the clean audits for the consecutive years. This is an indication that there is work in progress. This should also be converted to service delivery issues in our communities. Honorable Speaker, the African National Congress-led government is committed to a crime-free, corruption-free, highly ethical society and a government that is accountable to the people. However, crime is a societal matter, therefore the government cannot be able to fight it alone. United together against all odds, we can do better to combat crime and its activities in our communities. Honorable Speaker, the continued use of illegal firearms, explosive and other ammunition in the commission of violent, syndicate and organized crime is a great concern. As we just heard, even yesterday here in town, there was that issue and the mall had to be closed. So this violent crime engulfing our country is evident by the unprecedented high rate of murder in our province. This situation is compounded by the overwhelming rate of gender-based violence and femicide that appears to be more dominant in our rural areas. Through you, Honorable Speaker, we rely on concerted efforts by the department, the police, community members, and social organizations at large to manage and eradicate the scourge. We note the efforts done by the Department of Community Safety and we applaud them for the introduction of the Court Watch Brief, which assists in tracing the cases that were struck off the court roll. The department has made attempts to bring these cases back for reviewing and their adjudication, the court roll, so that justice can prevail. Gangsterism is one of the most severe crime problems in South Africa, and the rate of involvement of youth in gangsterism is increasing, particularly in the northern areas of Gqeberha, and believe it or not, in the area where I come from, Humansdorp, it is very bad. And I'm happy that the MEC has taken the time to go to that school there, which is right across my house. The influence of gangs and syndicates has spilled over into the secondary schools. This has resulted in increased gang membership among learners and gang-related incidents on school grounds. Secondary schools has become the hotspots for unsuspecting victims. Police reports has also shown increased rates at which criminals activities take place on school grounds. It is precisely for this reason that we urge the department to consolidate its safer school program being implemented under the expanded public work program social sector grant. Honorable Speaker, the ANC-led government is doing all the best to fight crime. SAPS has deployed an anti-gang unit throughout the district of Nelson Mandela Metro, particularly on the hotspots areas. Honorable Speaker, recently on the 28th of November 2022, the department in conjunction with SAPS has launched a Safer Festive Month in Mtansani Township, which is one of the biggest townships in the province. All the districts were allocated a number of police vans with the aim of promoting police visibility in the communities. We acknowledge the work done because this is a culmination of our oversight over the police. And it's true what Honorable Bobby was saying. We actually did that oversight in a night visit to most areas in the whole of the province, because that's when you see what is happening. Honorable Speaker, corruption poses a serious and direct threat to our restoration of development initiatives, good governance, service delivery, and ultimately stability, particularly at local level. We will continue focusing on corruption within the public service. Honorable Speaker, in spite of the limited financial resources, the department is deliberately committed in their work. However, budget cuts cripple the department in discharging its mandate fully. Knowing that the Department of Community Safety is at the center of ensuring that we are in crime-free society, but the budget limitations remain a serious concern for the department in reaching out there in communities. Honorable Speaker, through it all, the department has made a progress on the operation of the Buffalo City Metro District Office as a separate and distinct district office from the Amatola District Office. This is of vital importance for the spreading of the wings for safer communities. We commend the department for the re-establishment of the Provincial Justice Crime Prevention and Security JCPS, which enables the integrated approach to deal with the challenges within the criminal justice system. Honorable Speaker, it is no secret that the police are no longer safe. Their lives are at risk, even though they are expected to project the same work that are killing them. We therefore acknowledge the hard work by the police officers in our province. As we all know, police work is often exhausting, dangerous, and even traumatic. Police are generally at the receiving end of all community problems. We wish to encourage the department to intensify the efforts geared towards fighting and combating crime in our communities. For as long as we live in a fear, in unsafe communities, we can never truly say that we are free as a society. Honorable Speaker, I must also say thank you to the committee, to the department, to the committee members, to the MEC for making sure that this committee sat last night and this morning, and it's true, Honorable Bobby, it has never happened, but the unfortunate part is there was these issues that we had to confront. The African National Congress supports the report. Thank you to Mr. Heu and all the administration that made sure that the committee's report was then tabled, and thank you to the legislator for allowing us to then table this. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you so much, Honorable Camilio Benjamin. I call upon the MEC for Community Safety, Honorable Ngata. Your 10 minutes starts now, Honorable MEC.
Yeah, thank you. Greetings to you, Honorable Speaker, and Honorable Acting Premier, members of the Executive Council, and honorable members of the Legislature, members of the Portfolio Committee, and the head of the department, Honorable Mvoko. Now, no, other senior officials present of the legislature, distinguished guests, as Koyona Paya Kalari, and all other guests who might be witnessing the activities, maybe through other platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Honorable Speaker, allow me to take this opportunity to congratulate the newly appointed 4 major generals in the province, being Major General Klauga, who is a male, now is the district commissioner in Sarah Batman, which is an important development. Again, Major General Velem, who is a female at Joe Gabi, is another Major General, and Major General Majigijela in Alfred Nzo, who is a female, and Major General Tagavu in Amatole, who is a male. And congratulations to them, and we wish them all the best. And Honorable Speaker, let me remark that the points raised and wish to express my appreciation with the boldness you took the challenge facing the legislature. Because if we're talking about the renewal project, the strengthening of our accountability ecosystem, including the legislature and all oversight bodies, including Chapter 9 institution, is quite central. And therefore, when the legislature is weakened, we all losers. And therefore, the legislature must help us, therefore, to turn the clean audits that we celebrate into things that are celebrated by our people. Will not succeed, therefore, with a weaker legislature. And I'm encouraged that the Speaker is taking this thing head on by saying that she's going to be dealing with it. And I think that the opportunity, Honorable Mboko, through you, Honorable Speaker, of the ruling party going to its conference, national conference, represent an opportunity of not ending to say there is no money, to forge ahead in pushing the perspectives of the ruling party in the province, to say the current neoliberal path that is being followed, fiscal consolidation and austerity, is not sustainable. We have been doing this for more than 2 decades now, but this current economic path reproduces inequality and poverty. We're going towards a cliff now with our eyes open. And the province said, we must change the policy path. For no country has come out of a crisis through austerity. It's important that we must push for that path, for this path is not sustainable. And the last point on these remarks, Honorable Chair, is to welcome the points raised, reinforcing the points raised by Honorable Stevenson. What has failed in the Soviet Union is not socialism, but a distorted form of socialism, where there was no democracy. The elite in the Politburo took decisions. Those who lived in the Soviet Union still remember the past, because it says socialism is about the electrification of the whole country. It is about to value all necessary work, including the whole issue of unpaid labor done by women, including EPWP. It's supposed not to be work opportunities, but to be job opportunities for people to be paid, because cleaning our township and our streets is necessary work. It needs to be recognized as such. So, as opposed to what you're saying. And the point is to say, we don't have to critique only the state capture criminal network. It's not either or. Both of them are twin dangers we must fight. The system of imperialism, which reproduces the kind of a value system of dog eat dog, whose economic system is based on making profit for the few, is characterized by greed. People are not hungry in the world because of the scarcity of resources. It's because the few are controlling the resources, are filthy rich, and yet that economy is produced by the majority. And the criminal state capture network must be pursued at the same time. So my point is that it's not either or. Both are twin dangers. And I wish to take this opportunity, therefore, Honorable Speaker, to welcome the report as tabled by the Portfolio Committee, committing our department to continue to respond as prescribed in the legislation into these findings. And I would also like to take this opportunity to inform this august House that our department has already adopted various plans in the efforts in reducing crime in this province. And we have set aside, for instance, the month of November as a safety month, which we have taken up quite a number of programs, crime programs. This included, imbizos and other activities, including raids, including roadblocks. Doing this under the theme, Musa ukuthula kusonakala, loosely translated as do not keep quiet whilst things are going wrong. And we've also launched the provincial safety strategy, whose key main 6 pillars is active participation and community, is public participation and active involvement of the public, including safety through environmental design, with the point being raised about the issue of roads infrastructure. Because how our environment is designed must enable our efforts to fight against crime. Because if the police have no access in these areas, our efforts, the efforts of SAPS would be compromised. And the effective and integrated service delivery for safety and early intervention, rather than to adopt a reactive mode, to adopt this interventionist approach, Honorable Stevenson, which you're raising about.
Honorable Member, you have 3 minutes remaining.
How many minutes? 3 minutes, okay. Yeah, again, we want to take this opportunity, Honorable Speaker, to say, as Honorable Malamlela in his motion tabled earlier when we started, that last year as a province was leading in the decrease of road fatalities by 8%. And we need to double that so that we decrease these fatalities. And already from the 1st of December up to today, we have got about 27 fatalities, which is really unfortunate. But when you compare the same period last year, by this time we're sitting at 33 fatalities. But 27 is still too many, but at the same time a reflection of the effort that are being made. And road safety is everybody's responsibility. We're calling upon honorable members and members of the community to work together in ensuring that we prevent loss of life in our road, that all of us observe the rules of the road and work and live like abiding citizens. For one life lost is one too many. I will take this opportunity, Honorable Speaker, to thank the Portfolio Committee for its insight and guidance. It is the work done by the Portfolio Committee that have seen the department registering 7 clean audits. That could not have been possible without the work of this committee. As we take the pride, we also equally know that we owe that to the contribution that the committee has been doing over the years. And thanks very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you so much, Honorable MEC. Honorable members, I put the report. Any objections? Thank you so much. I will ask the Secretary to read the 5th order of the day.
Consideration of the report of the Portfolio Committee on Finance and Provincial Expenditure on the Provincial Adjustment Appropriation Bill 2022-23.
Thank you so much, Acting Secretary. Honorable Luana, your 15 minutes starts now. I'm sure you will use less than that.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and good afternoon once more, honorable members. The Portfolio Committee on Provincial Finances tabled this report as follows, that the committee has considered the bill, that is the Provincial Adjustment Appropriation Bill 2022, referred to as B5 2022 EC. On 4, after considering the bill, the committee agreed as follows. 1, that the committee agree to the principle of the bill, and 2, noted the content of the bill. On motion of desirability, that it is the opinion of the committee desirable that the Provincial Adjustment Appropriation Bill B5 2022 EC be adopted to provide for appropriation of money from the Provincial Revenue Fund for the requirements of the province of the Eastern Cape in 2022-23 financial year, and to provide for matters incidental to thereto. On the report,
So my apologies, Chairperson of the Finance Committee, you have no members of Finance? Or don't they sit when the bill is, I assume unless you have no members of the Finance Committee currently in the House?
Ambani Makabanzo.
No one.
Bakhona.
Perhaps in the new year, we will always make sure that even before the member comes up, that we call the members also, because they seem to forget. Our apology, Honorable Wana. Whilst they are taking their seats, you may continue.
Yes, Speaker. On point 6, the committee, having considered the Provincial Adjustment Appropriation Bill, adopts the bill without amendments. The total additional appropriation for the province stands at 3.1 billion. The committee therefore moves for the adoption of the bill. However, the committee would like to comment as follows. That we have the following findings. One, or rather A, National Treasury approved conditional grant rollover request of $500 million for departments, human settlement, education, health, sports and recreation, arts and culture. B, that the Office of the Premier shows a net decrease of 22.1 acting Premier million because of slow progress in connecting identified sites for the rollout of the broadband project. The committee note with concern that during the same period in 21-22 financial year, the OTP surrendered 162.9 million from the same project, e-broadband. Capacity seems to be the problem, as OTP also depends on SETA, and the project should also be implemented in collaboration with SA Connect. 3, or C, there is an apparent underfunding of the legislature. I think the House has spoken at length on this matter, resulting in insufficient funds for the core business program, and thus compromising oversight, lawmaking, and public participation. That is hitting at the existence of the very institution. This may also suggest weaknesses at the technical level in planning and execution. D, the Department of Health is still failing to adhere to Treasury Regulation 8.2.3, that of paying supplies within 30 days. It was said earlier. E, the underspending of departments, more so with regards to infrastructure and conditional grants, can be managed better, as at times the issue is not shortage of resources, but capacity in utilization of what is there. This is also exacerbated by the implementing agents seem not to have capacity to assist departments. The Cabinet Budget Committee has agreed to set aside 2 days from the 15th December to address this. F, provincial departments are lagging behind in paying for municipal services, and the departments of health and education again are cited on that. G, despite all interventions to reduce COEs to budget ratio, the achievement of the desired 60-40 split is still elusive. And the following recommendation, A, Provincial Treasury must submit to committee request of the rollovers from the departments together with reasons why departments could not spend the funds. B, Provincial Treasury together with OTP should expedite engagements with National Treasury in ensuring that OTP, CETA, and SA Connect work together towards implementation of the broadband, if you recall, honorable members. A project plan must be submitted to the committee as soon as the plan is finalized and approved. C, the legislature should convene a portfolio committee meeting on finance together with legislature oversight committee with both accounting officers where they will share with both committees reasons for underfunding. I think this has been spoken over and has been coming in various forms in terms of the submissions. D, the recommendation, rather the Provincial Treasury should ensure that Department of Health adhere to Treasury regulations, that is 8.2.3, and continue to assist departments to comply. Recommendation E, departments should submit the intervention plans to address this matter within 30 days after approval by EXCO. And F, the Provincial Treasury together with COGTA and OTP. I think there has been a call, acting Premier, if you take note, from the Portfolio Committee of the governance cluster to come together. There are specific reference areas. And I wish that this thing be noted. On G, the Provincial Treasury together with OTP should reinforce measures in place to confront this matter. I must hasten, Honorable Speaker, to appreciate the leadership of the MEC, Treasury, the HOD, and his senior management for cooperation and helping and making themselves available during the provincial appropriation bills meeting. I present the report, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you so much, Honorable Wana. Clarity by the committee members? None? You are free to return to your seats. No questions to the committee. To the MEC questions? Does not seem to be any. I call upon Honorable Stevenson from the DA. Your 12 minutes starts now, Honorable Stevenson.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I can assure the Honourable MEC for Community Safety that there's nothing subversive or dangerous in my bag. There's a few points I'd like to raise about the adjustment budget, which the Democratic Alliance does not support. The first thing, what we're looking for is a clear vision that is geared to putting this province on a much needed growth trajectory when it comes to the management of finances and the allocation of resources. And we don't see any new innovative ideas and out-of-the-box thinking to shift resources away from non-core expenditure to core expenditure. We cannot carry on in the same manner as the Honourable Member for Community Safety pointed out. We need bold steps that are going to realign our expenditure so we can improve service delivery. The cost of COE, we're looking for a plan of how one's going to rationalize it. Years ago, in the Portfolio Committee of Finance, the officials were busy putting something together in this regard. I'm talking about a previous term, but I don't know exactly what's ever come of that. When we look at the Department of Public Works, there's close to R1 billion worth of irregular expenditure, and this points to a lack of control measures in place to manage how the department spends money. Then one of our biggest concerns is with the roads and transport. The Honourable van Buchenrode got an answer to a question which says that the allocation for scholar transport has been used up. How are suppliers going to be paid through to March next year? How are children going to get to school? So we cannot support this budget. Then if we look at the health department and the amount of accruals, this department is technically bankrupt and is drowning and should actually be placed under administration. Then when we look at the budget for this House, you know, if we vote for this budget, with all respect to everyone here, we will be like turkeys voting for Christmas, because as things stand now, there's a 20 million shortfall for the cost of employment and 19 million shortfall for goods and services. Then we do acknowledge that through the outward migration from 2011, because of the census, has resulted in a drop of our equitable share. But we need to identify new sources of revenue. And what progress has been made with the enhancement of provincial revenue? I remember attending a meeting here where there's some very innovative and good ideas put forward, but we haven't heard much more since then. Then also when it comes to the state entities, I think in her speech, the Honourable Kali mentioned something about this was discussed 3 years ago. I can remember it being discussed in a previous term. And then I can remember there was a wage bill of almost 900 million rand for the cost of state entities. I don't know what it is now, but it must be well over that. And there has been this ongoing talk about the rationalization of state entities, but nothing much seems to have come on it. Then we do commend the province for its commitment to the rollout of economic infrastructure. We also see this as extremely important to create the necessary framework to assist with economic growth. But an issue, the final issue I'd like to raise, Honourable Speaker, is if we really want to bring about long-term sustainability when it comes to infrastructure projects, then we need to ensure the blacklisting of contractors who fail to deliver on projects they have been awarded. They can't just start up business under another name a few months later. So, Honourable Speaker, these are our comments and the reasons why we will not be supporting the adjustment budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Stevenson. I call upon Honourable Zinti from the UDM. Your 4 minutes starts now.
Honorable Speaker, currently South African government is faced with the biggest pandemic, which is corruption, where there is mismanagement of public funds and lack of accountability. The ANC-led government cannot be trusted with public funds. The reason being, most of the time, the funds that are meant to improve the lives of society end up in the pockets of certain individuals, as we have seen in the past by Ayaznab. As much as the appropriation bill is a good bill to be passed, knowing ANC, it will only benefit certain individuals within the party instead of the community at large. Earmarks and limitations are two devices regularly used in annual appropriation acts to direct and restrict, respectively, the availability of funds for specified activities. Sometimes an earmark or a limitation may generate more interest or controversy than the Appropriations Act. Earmarks are generally defined more narrowly, often reflected procedures established over time that may differ from one appropriation bill to another. For one bill, an earmark may refer to a certain level of specificity within an account. For other bill, an earmark may refer to funds set aside within an account of individual project, locations, or institution. The authorization of appropriations should be a process done in an orderly sequence, with each step of the process generating a part of the information trail. All of these steps would be documented to avoid and ensure that the funds are for what is meant for. Funding priorities without breaching discretionary spending limits should be implemented and monitored. The committee and accounting officers have fundamental roles in determining how much of the spending to provide each fiscal year. Accounting officers of the department also required to designate it as such after it is appropriated to be available for expenditure. Debate over what should constitute emergency activities and expenses has shifted over time. Funding approach is also required to designate it as such after, Funding approach is also required to designate it as such after it is appropriated to be available for expenditure. Debate over what should constitute emergency activities and expenses has shifted over time, reflecting differing viewpoints about what is urgent and what is the need remains an open debate. To meet urgent needs of communities across the Eastern Cape should be strict transparency and accountability rules need to be communicated. In order for the funds meant for project be used effectively and efficiently.
Honorable Member, your time is expired.
Okay. The UDM? Not at all. Not at all.
Thank you so much. Honorable Ndabeni from the ANC. Your 18 minutes starts now.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Once again, Honorable Speaker and Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Premier in absentia, and members of the Executive Council, Honorable members of the House, senior management of the department and our officials in the legislature, as well as members in the gallery, comrades and friends. I am not disturbed by the fact that the members of the opposition bench are leaving the House. We still constitute the majority in this House. So the House proceeds as normal. Honorable Speaker, the longest served President General of the ANC, President Oliver Tambo, who led the African National Congress in exile for 30 years, was once asked a question whether our struggle is a struggle against black or white and white. I'll just paraphrase his answer without quoting the statement. Paraphrasing his answer, he said, while driving a national democratic revolution in avoiding our struggle to degenerate into a struggle of race, black against white. Our struggle is a struggle against apartheid as a system and all their associates to liberate people of South Africa, blacks in general and Africans in particular, against all the economic and political bondages under the suppression of the apartheid system, close quote. Honorable Speaker, we're on that path 28 years into democratic state as led by the organization of OR Tambo, the African National Congress. Honorable Speaker, the African National Congress, through its development plan, we note the adjustment budget with an additional 3.1 billion allocated, growing our provincial fiscus from 86.4 billion to 89.5 billion rands. That increase of the budget must address the fundamental issue of the disaster that has affected most of our social infrastructure like schools, clinic and other community infrastructure, must equally address the economic infrastructure of the province, must also address the fundamental development of our province. Honorable Speaker, as the African National Congress, we are happy with the appropriation that has been presented, an adjustment. That adjustment focuses on the fundamental core program of the African National Congress, the radical economic transformation, and the intervention of the state in the economic development of the country and the province. That is constituted in the 54th resolution of the African National Congress conference, which was held at Nasrec. Core to that, the promotion of growth and development, eradication of the challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequalities, promotion of youth employment, and other development. Honorable Speaker, we support the adjustment budget as tabled, and support that the adjustment is tabled, which also talk to the investment of the province. As well as we know the investment conference that was convened just before the tabling of the adjustment budget. That investment conference attracted more than 11 new investment opportunities in the province, total to over 46 billion of the new investment opportunities that are coming to the province. We are equal as the African National Congress, Honorable Speaker, working around the clock in making sure that the mega or the major economic project that were articulated by the Premier in his state of the province address, they see the light of the day. Your Umzimvu water project, which that project, if were to be unleashed, can generate the hydropower electricity that can electrify the entire African continent. It can also unleash the agricultural opportunities, especially around the Pondoland belt. The N2 Wild Coast Road, which has already started, we have seen the bridge at Msikaba and Mtentu, costing over 1.1 billion and 3 billion simultaneously. The water infrastructure project, we want to advance as the African National Congress that Eastern Cape is the only province in the country with more than 13 rivers flowing to the sea. If this water can be quashed and be consolidated, we can provide hydroelectric power over Mzimvubu that can even supply the entire African continent with only hydroelectric power as the Eastern Cape province with that opportunity. As the African National Congress also want to advance the digital transformation and the use of the latest technological advancement in terms of the development of the province. In the same spirit, Honorable Speaker, I want to applaud the Department of Treasury for the circular they put forward of making sure that all departments are prohibited from shifting the infrastructure budget to other areas. The money that was appropriated for infrastructure must be spent for the infrastructure project in the province, nothing else. And as the African National Congress, we support that stand of the provincial treasurer. Over and above, Honorable Speaker, the adjustment budget, as it were, demonstrate that it will also address the issue of the compensation of employees, the ICT, the infrastructure of the province. This must be addressed in making sure that we keep the skills that are required in our public service, we keep the professionalism, and make sure that our officials are compensated at a value that is market-related. We must add, as the African National Congress, Honorable Speaker, that the budget allocated to the provincial legislature needs to be adjusted so that the provincial legislature can indeed work and do its constitutional responsibility of making sure that we deal with issues of public participation, we make sure that the appropriate laws are developed, and also making sure that there's community and community participation in all the government programs. Those core programs of the legislature must not be compromised in our budget. With that, Honorable Speaker, we also want to, as the African National Congress, express that the adjustment budget must also deal with the threatening of the medical legal claims in our budget system, in making sure that our government is saved from those claims of the medical legal claims as the department. And also to make sure that our health department is not compromised and our health services are not compromised. The last point, Honorable Chair, in conclusion of our presentation, we want to applaud also the adjustment that it allocates over 645 million additional budget to the Department of Transport in making sure that we deal decisively with our road network and challenges of maintenance in the province of the Eastern Cape. With that, Honorable Speaker, as the African National Congress, we support the adjustment budget and make sure that we deliver on the core mandate of our sixth administration. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ndabeni. You've saved us a few minutes. And now call upon the MEC, Honorable Mvoko. Your 10 minutes starts now.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Greeting once again to the honorable members in the House and to the officials. At least there's one, Honorable Speaker. I don't know whether you have noticed that. So at least somebody has joined me. Oh, there are 3 other guys sitting there on top. Okay. Nimir Stocksil Alien. So at least now some people that have joined me. Honorable Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to stand before this House just to make concluding remarks following the tabling of the portfolio's report on this year's adjustment budget. It's comforting to note that some of the findings are recommendations that are stated in the report and align with what I said during my adjustment speech budget. I've learned in the previous debate that I must stick to what is written here. I must first reiterate that adjustments budget's purpose is to appropriate funds that have been made available to the province and to allocate funding for unforeseeable and unavoidable expenditures. I thought it's important that I start by explaining that. The adjustment budget also provides departments with an opportunity to shift funds from underperforming areas to areas that are experiencing cost pressures. We also use this period to forecast policy direction going into the medium term. And I believe we've done that pretty well in a number of areas. with much focus on departments of education and health, who continue to experience a lot of budget pressures. We spoke a lot on the focused intervention that is directed at health and education to achieve fiscal sustainability. The long-term plan that has been adopted by health speaks to a number of areas whose objective is to address their liquidity challenges. And these include integrated medical legal support and prioritization of digitalization and e-health, amongst others. Our intervention at education cuts across a number of areas, including human resources, finances, ICT, and well as the infrastructure management. Once all these concerns are addressed, we have confidence that they will result to these two departments, especially health, improving in their financial obligation, including payment of suppliers within 30 days. The ultimate goal, however, is to improve service delivery in these two apex priorities of government. Honorable Speaker, as we were navigating this year's adjustment budget process, we did so under a very constrained economic environment. We, however, draw positives from critical sectors of our economy in the province, such as agriculture, construction, transport, finance, and business services, who continue to drive a positive growth momentum for the province and create the much-needed jobs. Just this week, we were encouraged by Stats SA, who reported GDP growth of 1.6%, also citing agriculture as the primary as a primary driver of that growth. Honorable Speaker, we raised concerns around underspending by departments, especially an infrastructure budget. We agree with the committee that there should be a concerted effort by the affected departments working with Treasury and OTP to improve their spending patterns. Our policy direction for this medium term invites for accelerated economic infrastructure delivery that is characterized by efficiencies on time, budget, and value. And I would like to thank all the oversight structures concerned in ensuring that we perform our functions diligently. It's encouraging that there is a high level of agreement between us in many of the issues raised. Let us continue to work together to improve the lives of the poor and vulnerable in the Eastern Cape. With those few words, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Mvoko. The Provincial Adjustment Appropriation Bill 2223 stands referred to the Committee of the Whole House in terms of Rule 158.5 of the Standing Rules. I will now call the chairperson, the acting chairperson of Committee of Chairpersons, to take the chair to consider the bill.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, good afternoon. We don't have the quorum we don't have the quorum. We have the rules, honorable members. We have the rules. Yeah. We don't have the quorum, and we will ring the bell and give it 3 minutes, and we'll talk to the chief whip, and we will then convene. So, Madam Zat. 3 minutes, adjournment.
Chair of Chairs.
that we can begin with our business. Honorable members, the rules allows for one adjournment and also the suspension of the sitting for a certain period. Now, what we are going to do, the time now it's 25 to if we have the same time. We are going to suspend the House for 40 minutes with the hope that the Chief Whip and all the relevant MPLs that are here will assist to ensure that members within that 40 minutes were able to resume and have the quorum. We're short of, I think, 5, because we should be 31 plus 1, 32. So we need 32 members so that we can resume. So we suspend, it's almost 22 now, we suspend, and we will be back, got 10 past 3, ne? We will reconvene 10 past 3. Thank you very much. The House is suspended till